Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of Walter's World, the podcast series from Astadia. My name is Walter Sweat, and I'm the Astadia CTO. And as hopefully you know, this podcast series is really dedicated to helping organizations who are interested in looking at mainframe and mainframe alternatives, insights from industry leaders, industry experts who, have been through this process before and hopefully share pertinent and helpful information with them. And today I'm very happy to be joined by someone I consider an industry icon, Lance Knowlton, who is the VP of Platform Migrations Group for Oracle. Lance, it's great to have you here. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
It's great to be here, Walter. I really appreciate your time today.
Okay, thanks, sir. Lance, could you tell our group a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do at Oracle?
Sure, Walter, happy to. So I've been with Oracle now, Walter. I've been here a little over 17 years. And actually, our team is interesting in the fact that we're part of the R&D organization at Oracle. So it's an interesting role. We get to work with a number of different customers throughout the world. We actually have a global team. And so our charter is to help customers with their legacy migration projects. So we're there to be subject matter experts for our customers to help them through the journey. As you well know, Walter, it's a process. It's typically not some point in time, but there's a lot of legacy environments out there. And so we have the ability to work with customer over long durations of time and helping them craft their roadmaps. We're brought in directly by the customers. And because we're part of R&D, our work is unique in the sense that, we're sponsored by Andy Mendelson, who runs the database organization. It's the team we report into. And so Andy invests in our customers by allowing us to work in these projects, long term. So we help customers craft roadmaps, and that's both in the traditional legacy world, but also in some of the distributed migration projects as well, which I can touch upon. Personally, I've been in the industry for over 30 years. Before coming to Oracle, I actually ran development for a migration company at the time. They were one of the quadrant leaders. It was a company called Blue Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
I was there for quite some time. I started out as a software developer in the mainframe space. I actually was a contractor at IBM doing C development on a mainframe for their EGL, fourth generation language product line. And through just, as luck would have it, I just got involved in a migration company and started doing a lot of work there, came up through team lead, development manager, ended up running development for the company, and it was a great experience. We got to see a lot of different migration scenarios, and also we're doing a lot of code generation, which obviously, as you well know, with what you guys do is an important part of transformation. So it really was kind of, fortuitous, and then, joined Oracle, and I've been here, and pretty much the entire time, my entire focus has been with legacy migration. So we've worked with literally hundreds of customers in different scenarios, both short-term and long-term. And it's a very interesting role. I mean, we get to see a lot of different things. We'll talk about some of those today. Some of them are some situations are, the customers are really struggling to come up with how they're going to transform their systems. But it's an exciting space. And although I've been in a very long time, every week is, as you well know, every week is different with the unique projects that customers bring you and their situations. And it's not only the technical side of it, but it's the business challenge as well, right? I mean, because ultimately that's what they're trying to solve. And some of these customers we've seen systems as old as 35, 40 years in some situations. Quite incredible how long some of these systems have been serving the business. But as you well know, some of them are getting to the stage where they've got to start moving forward. So it's a great role. I'm very, very blessed to have it. Really enjoy working with customers, and we've had a long-term relationship with Astadia. You guys have been great to work with. You've obviously evolved and morphed and done your own modernization efforts and your recent acquisition. So it's been a great relationship working with you guys as well.
Well, we feel the same. And, it's funny, Lance, you talked about your background and your history for those of us who came up 20 or 30 or 40 or more years ago. It's hard for me to imagine sometimes where we are now in this space compared to when we started. The the capabilities, the technology, what you can do with this power, just it's exciting for organizations to be able to look at what the future can be. And I know you and the team at Oracle, you have those long-standing relationships with your customers and being able to understand, as you mentioned, their challenges, the fact that people are retiring, they have changing business needs, and being able to be a part of that. I just feel that you, like I, get excited every day to come into work just to learn something new, even after an awful lot of years of doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially, the rate of change when it comes to development. I mean, you look back, over the years on the waterfall and, agile and continuous integration and those changes. And it's really put a lot of pressure on some of the organizations that we do work with, both independently and collectively, with regards to them keeping up. We recently had a customer that their entire business model changed just recently due to some basically digital improvements in their vertical space that have really set their entire application stack on its head, and they've had to totally reevaluate. And so you see some of these companies that have had models, obviously some of them are constantly changing, others go through leaps and bounds, and then you see the impact that some of these legacy portfolios have on these companies, and it's not just a cost thing. You mentioned skill set. It's been a big deal for our customers, but it's the ability to keep up with the competition.
Exactly.
You look at, especially in the financial services area, where there's these upstarts that are not hindered by legacy. And I've often had the conversation with customers that said, well, if some of these older environments, say mainframe environments, were just so good, then why wouldn't the upstarts use those to begin with? And you have to ask yourself that question if you're in that position, because don't get me wrong, there's certainly, those are very bulletproof platforms, historically, but they are very hard to change. And, I always ask customers that if your competition is not facing long development cycles and you are, if you're facing, vendor lock-in and they're not, those are kind of things that you really got to get ahead of. Otherwise, you're gonna cease to be relevant in your space. So it's constantly changing.
We see the same thing. I often make the analogy that if I were out on the ocean, I'd much rather turn a really sleek 26-foot catamaran really quickly than trying to turn an aircraft carrier to get it headed in a new, meaningful direction. I think that's what a lot of these brick and mortar companies who've been around forever with these legacy environments are starting to face. That, as you mentioned, the new players are coming into the marketplace. They're able to be much more agile, respond to changing business needs, and that's why the work that you do, the work that Oracle does, is so important for organizations. Lance, speaking of that, can you help everyone kind of understand how Oracle works with your customers in this legacy modernization space?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, because we're part of R&D, Walter, we're typically called in by customers directly or by our field organization that is working with our customers, and they might be looking at a specific application or legacy database environment or a portfolio of systems, right, that they're evaluating. And the customer may be evaluating, not only our technology stack but our application stack. As you well know, one of the common, methods of modernizing is replacing sometimes homegrown systems with applications. So that's kind of a unique value add that we bring into the market that, maybe some of the other hyperscalers and technology providers don't, and that we've historically had very large enterprise class applications. And certainly we see portfolios or portions of portfolios being replaced and retired by those. But most of the time, the way that we're brought in is the customer is facing a specific challenge around a specific application. It could be mainframe, traditional mainframe ZOS systems. It could be AS400 systems. We tend to get waves of these things, right? So they come in waves. But certainly the mainframe space has been one that's been a constant, the entire 17 years that I've been here. Customers worried about it. I think what's changed recently is it was historically just a cost ROI equation. The skill set and agility has been the big factor. But we're brought in, by customers directly, working with our field teams, and they're asking us to, put together a roadmap, or what would we do, right, if we were in that situation. We also work in the distributed space, as I mentioned earlier. So we have customers that are looking at Sybase, Teradata, or Netezza environments that are, on-prem. They're getting older. They're looking to move to the cloud or become cloud ready. They're trying to consolidate and converge their skill sets and become more agile. And some of those legacy database technologies are also hindering them. So we see a lot mainframe, AS400, but also some of those legacy databases. And then we get engaged through the field. The field brings us in. We can talk a little bit about our process later, but that's traditionally how we get involved, Walter. And again, it can be as quick as a couple week engagement with customers to just give them some of our thoughts and best practices. It can be several year of engagements. Some of our engagements involve just best practices with our customers. Sure. How would we take a database system and how would we transform it? Clearly for most customers, it's much more than just the data and the data types. It's kind of what, the entire surround, right? What are they going to do with their ETL, their applications? How do they determine what things do need to be touched? How are they going to, if there's SQL differences, how are those going to be handled? Stored procedures, all of that. So while certainly we do help customers with kind of myopic, I just need to know how to transfer my database and my data types. If they're just, if they're evaluating our autonomous database or Exadata, most times than not, it's broader, right? And it's going to involve the applications, the surround. What am I going to do about testing? What did I historically do? What are my modernization benefits going to be in the future? How do I make sure my RAS characteristics are high? Those sorts of things. So it is broad. We like to say that the only thing that is common among all of them is that they're all unique, right?
I can believe that. And I'm glad you brought that up, Lance. I'm kind of interested in understanding when you're talking to your clients, how do they describe their legacy applications to you? Does it run the gamut? Are there common characteristics that you see over and over again?
I think one that would be, worth discussing in this forum is, the one that, we worked on the past for one of our financial system customers that we were jointly engaged at with your team and our team. And, that conversation first started off with talking to their executive vice president team. This is a major financial services customer in the Southeast. And, they basically said, look, we're running on the mainframe. We're okay for now. We realize that it's starting to get a little harder to find skill sets. Oh, by the way, we're running IMS FastPath, and we're a little concerned about that. It's even a harder skill set to find, but we're okay. And they were kind of convincing themselves that everything was fine. And then they embarked upon a 1-year-long search for a new resource to join their team and to help them on their IMS journey. As I mentioned, they were running FastPath and one of the largest FastPath users. And they went through a recruiting phase that took them about 1 year to find a resource that they actually had to bring out of a Florida golfing community. This particular gentleman had retired, decided he was not going to work in the industry anymore, and retired, and was playing with the grandchildren and playing a lot of golf. And they actually convinced him. They said, come on back. We'd love to have you on the team. And clearly he had the IMS skill sets. The problem wasn't that equation, Walter, is that the gentleman, after he started, about 2 weeks later, he quit. And he just said, look, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have come back. I really miss my previous lifestyle. And I mean, it was great at 72 that he was coming back into the workforce, but the problem is for the customers that now they're out a year of opportunity.
A year gone by.
Right. And it was a major wake up call. And it was at that point in time that they asked our collective teams to come help them embark upon a modernization effort to help them off of not only IMS, but off of the mainframe. And that was a big eye opener. And that's something that we are consistently seeing, major financial services organizations that do have the capital and do have the reach, are really struggling now to find. We had another customer of ours that had 4 out of 6 systems programmers that were retiring in 1 year, and put them into a panic at the time. They did get through it, but it was concern to them. We're engaged just over the last couple of weeks with a customer that has literally one resource that is the key person that understands their order to cash system, written in RPG on a AS400 system. And they were very concerned about what are they going to do from a skill set perspective if this person decides that they're going to retire, or they want to go do something else, or they want to join another part of the business. So the skill set issue is the big game changer that we've seen recently. And that's one of the main reasons that they're reaching out to us. We've been working with some other financial services. We have another financial services customer that has about 250,000 MIPS. And they are in the process of completely moving off of the mainframe. In fact, they've told the market that they're going to be moving off, and they're moving to our Exadata Cloud at Customer technology. They want the ability to have cloud ready environments, but they want to have it on-prem, which is a great tee up for our Exadata Cloud at Customer technology, high res characteristics, but still kind of an OpEx model, and
right.
and them to really go after a cloud kind of operations model. But that is a big change that we've historically seen, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, Walter. FedEx recently announced to the public that they're moving out of their data centers and off.
That's a big statement, isn't it?
Yeah, those are when you look at the previous customer financial services, 250,000 MIPS, you look at FedEx and what they've told the world, those are major changes. So we're no longer talking about kind of back office, maybe 5 by 8 by 5 applications that maybe cost a little too much on the mainframe, or they were trying to do better data integration with distributed world. We're talking about really big systems, and I think it's a wake-up call, because it's like the old game of musical chairs, but this time you don't want to be the last person
You
to sit
do not
when the music goes out. And we've seen that in esoteric 4GL environments on the mainframe. As you well know, those become even tougher propositions and become even more expensive over time, less agile, more risk when it comes to skill set. So, our advice to customers is look, it doesn't mean you have to move tomorrow, but you need to have a game plan together. You need to understand what your risk is, especially as it relates to skills and retirement planned of typical retirement ages in your team. So, those are kind of macro big trends, but we've also been working with customers that just want to take their DB2 databases and move them down off the mainframe down to Oracle with our DRDA technology. So it's a pretty straightforward move. They can just move their databases, leave their existing applications on the mainframe, and rock and roll. So it doesn't mean that everything has to be long-term roadmap, multi-year engagement and holistic moves. We are working with customers at point situations as well, where they're just trying to do smaller, more granular moves and kind of position themselves along the way.
We see the same. It's not a one size fits all. Every situation is unique, right?
Absolutely.
Lance, you mentioned cloud earlier, and I'd be interested to know your thoughts. 10 years ago, everybody wanted to talk about cloud, but no one wanted to be first. Today, our conversations, people are realistically saying cloud is absolutely not just an option for me, but the option for me. Could you share some experiences that Oracle has gone through helping people move their clients' applications to cloud-ready apps?
Yeah, definitely. And we actually did a recent public webcast, where one of the industry analysts, specifically Gartner, was talking about that, now is really the time for customers that are on mainframes to look at going to cloud. So the technology has really advanced itself such to the point where, to our early discussion, that enterprise class applications can be moved with a high degree of confidence. And so cloud is a big part of all the conversations that we're having with our customers. We kind of have unique perspective on it that, as you know, Walter, now well over 10 years ago, we released Exadata, which was kind of a mainframe equivalent type of environment for large scale database customers that were coming off of the mainframe and needed to have the high RAS characteristics, the security, the performance, but they were going to stay completely on-prem. And then, that over time has morphed into our Exadata Cloud at Customer, which is a cloud, as I mentioned earlier, cloud operations model, gives customers the ability to deploy that behind their firewall, but as a OpEx type of model versus CapEx. And then we've got obviously our full public cloud, both at the app tier and at the database tier. And then something that is unique to us is our region at customer, where we can take our entire, one of our cloud data centers and put it inside of our customers' firewall, both at the application and the database tier. They get all of our cloud services and allows them to operate again in that cloud model, but behind their firewall for both the application and the data tier. And that's really good for customers that have been traditional mainframe customers that are worried about going full public, maybe yet, but they want to have that full cloud flavor. Maybe they're going to do a COBOL to Java transformation using some of your technology, or COBOL to COBOL, but they want to keep, they want to get off of the mainframe. They want to have high RAS characteristics, high security behind their firewall. So by offering those different models, it allows us to kind of blend in with where customers' expectations are short and long term. And really, once they're there, they can deploy across those different environments. We're also doing a lot of stuff, Walter, with hybrid, multi-cloud environments. So we have a special relationship with Microsoft and Azure. We have a fast connect. So customers that want to maybe come off of the mainframe and run .NET on their application tier, they want to stay Microsoft Azure on their application tier, but they want to take advantage of Oracle's database technology. They can do a fast connect between our technologies and have very low latency environments. And
that's huge, obviously.
Yeah, it's huge because obviously we recognize, and we've had a longstanding, partnership with Microsoft that, that they want to have an application tier with Microsoft. They want to have a database tier with Oracle, but they still want to move off of the mainframe, and they want those, they want those enterprise class characteristics. So we've got, lots of different working models with our cloud. And to give you an example, a customer example that's taking advantage of that, we had a customer in Canada that was running about 2 million lines of COBOL on their mainframe. We were brought in, we did a discovery with them, went through a transformation with them. They did a automated transformation to Java. They actually deployed on-prem to our Exadata model, or full Exadata on-prem model. They had their own app tier existing, so they just reused that, and they deployed on Exadata. And now we're going to market with them around that application because it's been freed from the mainframe, right? They're not dependent on COBOL any longer. They're fully Java. And now they want to sell that technology globally. And they want to do that with our team in a go-to-market fashion in our cloud. So we're working with them on that project right now. So first phase transformation was on-prem, and now they're deploying into cloud environments. So that gives you kind of an idea of the spectrum of different things that we're seeing, Walter.
That's one of the reasons I know we really enjoy getting to work with Oracle. I think we share a common thought process in that, trying to identify what's right for the customer and fit the solutions to their particular needs. That's so critical. For so many years, it was people were told you only have to follow a pattern, and it's like there really are an awful lot of patterns out there, and there are different benefits for every customer with each one of them.
Yeah, that hammer and nail philosophy of old, I think, obviously, you guys have worked with customers in a variety of situations, including just road mapping their portfolios. And I know you guys have done a lot of stuff around what was traditionally known before, cloud was so much in fashion as lift and shift. Now that term is definitely more used in a specific terms in the cloud, but rehosting or whatever term you want to use,
right.
With your your acquisitions around automated transformations, you guys have really grown in that area as well. And that, hammer and nail approach, I think only got people so far. And I think it's a reason that, many of the systems were, half on, half out of the mainframe. Whereas now, to our earlier points, we're seeing customers just saying, look, we're going, we're not stopping halfway. We're going to go the full bore approach.
That's what makes it exciting. Lance, I'd like to talk some specifics about Oracle technologies, if you don't mind, because I think the audience would be really, really interested in this. Can you kind of describe for us, what technologies are involved with your solution model that you use to help clients modernize their portfolios?
Sure. So, Walter, as our discussion went around, they're all unique situations. I can kind of start from the ground level and kind of work our way up, right? So baseline, if a customer comes to us and they're interested in looking at their legacy database, this could be on the mainframe, this could be on distributed, right? Then we can help customers evaluate what's the best way to move their data and their metadata at a purely kind of almost ground level, organic level. And we do have customers that come to us around that. In fact, I mentioned our DRDA technology. That's something that we've helped customers with several times, where they just want to move their data off of the mainframe. They want to lower their MIPS. They're going to stay with with a DRDA type of model. And that's a pretty straightforward approach, right? And we have other customers that say, look, if you help me move the data and the data types and the metadata, I'm good. I'll take it from there. We might be, working with a customer's database organization, and we'll stop at that point. And that may involve things like our SQL developer tooling. It could involve, Oracle integrator. There's a variety of different approaches. SQL loader could be just as bare minimum as those types of approaches. But certainly what we find in most cases is customers start looking at the surround, right? The ETL, the stored procedures, the SQL conversions, all of that. And so when there's stored prop conversions involved, we may use some of our internal technology for that. We may use, some of our close partners like yourselves, right? Where there's different types of languages were available in different database implementations, some even up to and including COBOL, right? And so we're going to have to account for that. And so, again, we're not hammer and nail. We look at that, we evaluate, we produce a roadmap, and then we'll figure that out from there. But, other engagements that we have might involve Golden Gate, which is our change data capture, our enterprise class change data capture technology, which does both old school legacy environments all the way up to, new world Kafka type, cloud environments, right? And so again, it'll come down to what's the needs. Is this a one-time effort? Is this going to be an ongoing? Do we have a particular, differential that we need to catch up to right before cutover is done? That sort of thing. Certainly our Java technology, right? From an Oracle perspective, highly leveraged in COBOL to Java, approaches. And certainly we've even gotten our Oracle labs involved in certain situations with Java transformations where maybe more performance was needed. Exadata, as I said earlier, been a common denominator. Obviously that's based on our rack database, our clustering database technology, used probably 80-90% of some of these legacy mainframe environments. We see that quite often. And then Exadata being the backbone of our cloud and our previous conversations on cloud. OCI, our cloud technology, is being heavily utilized by customers, in different scenarios. Could be dev test, could be all the way through production. It just really depends on the customer and the situation. Oracle Tuxedo is many customers may be familiar with Tuxedo from our acquisition years back of BEA. Oracle Tuxedo has went through a large amount of enhancements. We're using that in a number of COBOL migrations for our customers that want to preserve their COBOL. And Tuxedo has the capabilities of transforming the customer's underlying COBOL CI/CS DB2 or IMS environments and transforming them into, it could be an on-prem environment, it could be a region at customer environment, it could be a full public cloud or multi-cloud, right? So it's very, it has enterprise class capabilities. and can be deployed in a variety of different situations, not just an Oracle situation. So it does depend. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, Oracle applications, we do have some customers that want to, in essence, decommission, let's say, an HR system that's on their mainframe. They want to move to our HR system or one of our financial applications. We see that as well. And we believe that, the right way of looking and evaluating this is to do a portfolio analysis, with someone like yourselves to figure out, okay, what are my options? Even if I'm going to replace maybe with a package, what are my business rules? What is my surround technology? Am I going to lose anything? Do I need to account for any loss in functionality by representing that maybe in services, microservices, or something like that going forward that's going to be leveraged by my package? So it really does vary, and that's one of the kind of the unique things about us, and one of the things that's so interesting is we've got different ways of addressing these situations, can really flavor it to what the customer is looking for.
Interesting point that you bring up, Lance. I'd like to kind of extend on that, if you don't mind, talking about differentiators. What do you feel differentiates Oracle and your approach to modernizations versus some of the other hyperscalers in the market today? And I'd be willing to bet you get that question pretty often.
We do. I mean, obviously, customers are looking at a broad variety of technologies and choices now, and so we have to regularly articulate and bring to bear what makes us different. And I would say, one of the biggest differences is our history, right? We have been at this now. This transformation team that I'm a part of has been around for more than 20 years. And for example, when I first joined Oracle, we were working with a very large insurance company that had a 35,000 end user system that was being brought completely off of the mainframe over to our RAT cluster database. When the transformation was done, the customer literally had to take his line of business owner down to the data center and show him that the machine had been off, because the performance was just as good, if not better. The cost was much less. The RAS characteristics were all very high. And so, what I like to tell customers is we've been at this a very long time. This is not something that we just started. Oracle's been, it's been a stalwart in enterprise class applications and technologies for a very long time. So one of our big differentiators is our experience in this area. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our Exadata technology, which has been very successful. In fact, we had a customer, financial services, credit card processing, another IMS user, different from the one we discussed earlier. They had a very small SLA latency that they needed to make to come off of IMS, and we work with them very closely, and were able to actually beat what they were getting out of IMS. And they've been running on IMS for 20 years. So we're very proud of that. So the enterprise class is a big characteristic. The other thing I would say is that we financially back our cloud SLAs, and I would encourage anyone that was looking at doing a transformation to make sure that you're not going to come off of a highly resilient platform and then throw caution to the wind and go to maybe the lowest common denominator target environment. What you can find to be the cheapest, the most open source, the kind of bare bones. Because what we found, and we've actually seen this several times, is customers will attempt to maybe maximize their savings, but in the reality of it, what they do is they put the transformation at great risk, because they're going literally from a very performant platform. Let's not fool ourselves. The legacy systems were very performant, primarily because the application in the database there lived on its the same platform. They've been highly tuned over 20 or 30 years, and then if you try to go so far in the other direction, we've seen some customers really struggle with that. And the other thing that we've seen is that they'll sometimes take the database du jour, whatever the cool kid on the block is, they'll modernize to that, and that may work for a point application. But then as they try to scale up that technology, both the resources and performance, and then concerns around security, they start realizing that they've lost a lot. And so the cumulative investment that Oracle has made, the billions of dollars that we spend every year in R&D, has built upon itself. So, for example, one of our newer technologies is JSON with our autonomous database, right? And so our autonomous implementation is a culmination of all these decades of best practices and this serious spend. These aren't point in time, unique kind of solutions that were all sprawled out. They've built on top of each other. So that's a very important consideration. I would also encourage customers to look at the way that we developed our cloud and our redundancy and our financially backed SLAs, which are unique in this space. And so we're literally putting our money where our mouth is. So we think, it's a combination of things, Walter. I mean, the fact that we've owned, in the case of automated migrations to Java, all the work that we do with Java, with our labs, the integration of Java with our backend database technology, things like Tuxedo, which have been, running financial systems backbones for years and years and years, with the highest SLAs. Those are really what we consider to be, the differentiators. And for customers that maybe are on the smaller side and they're looking at this, excuse me, and they're saying, well, do I need, a sledgehammer for maybe something that I just need a small pickaxe for? I would still encourage them to take a very close look at our technology and our pricing. Again, one of our core themes is convergence of databases, right? So don't get into a situation where you're sprawling out. There's so many different databases, and then you find your DBA team is spread thin. Now you're back down to one person knowing a database. Could be new, but you still got one person that knows it. It's not a good place to put the organization. And so, one of our core fundamentals of autonomous is that we're trying to bake out human error in our database deployment. So we're doing things like auto indexing, right? And that you really don't have to worry about patching, security, provisioning these databases. They do it on their own. They're going to monitor their own performance. So you get economies of scale. You get all the building blocks that I mentioned in our R&D investment. So it's pretty powerful, right? And not only can we talk about it, we can prove it. And we would encourage customers to not take our just a word, but measure us as well. So
you absolutely have the successes to prove that this has worked for many, many customers, and that's something that I agree. I think it's important for organizations to kind of learn what other people have done and how they've been successful with you. Lance, a couple of last quick questions. I know I'm taking an awful lot of your time, but could you kind of describe your modernization process for us? I think that could be of interest to the audience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we realize for some customers, they may have been involved in engagements that were maybe multi-month, multi-year evaluations of their portfolios. And certainly there's certain circumstances where customers are running maybe dozens, if not hundreds of applications and multi-million lines of source code. And that, probably practically is the way that, it should be done. But what we're trying to do is provide a quick review for our customers, especially if they have a point in time application that they're looking at and they say, look, does this make sense from a business perspective? Does it make sense from a technical perspective? And what can I expect out of my modernization roadmap? What are going to be maybe my initial conversion recommendations? What would the target architecture look like at a high level? What would be my cost? So what we've done is we've put together a couple of different offerings. One is just typically 1 to 3 week engagement with our customers to talk with them about their particular legacy situation, both business and technically. Make sure that we understand. We want to be good doctors, right? We don't want to start whipping out the scalpel until we understand the patient, right? And we want the patient to talk to us. And so what we'll talk to them about, the situation they're facing, their timelines, costs, again, business technical, how much code, what are the platforms running on, what are their expectations, right? And what have they tried before? And what we'll do typically, Walter, is within maybe 1 to 3 week time period, we'll come back, we'll make some initial recommendations, we'll put together some thumbnail sketches. And if that bears fruit, if the customer's interested and they say, look, it sounds good, but I need to learn more, then typically what we'll do is we'll go into a little bit longer analysis period. And that'll often include, the legacy portfolio analysis, including code analysis. And frankly, that's when we'll typically look to work with Astadia, right? Which is we want to be able to analyze the customer's source code, vet out, make sure that the initial roadmap recommendations were true, right? That it makes sense. Now, we understand what you told us is your platform. What does your actual platform consist of? What's the complexity, not of the system as it relates to maybe legacy maintenance, but what's the complexity of the system as it relates to migrating it, which is two different things, you well know, right? So we need to look at that because those are very unique to the customer situation. And then, that's typically on average, and it does vary, 4 to 6 week time period. Oftentimes there's a commitment of not only time and resources, but funding from a customer perspective, because it involves, real work, a lot of automation, but it involves real work. And we're basically just trying to make sure the customer's committed and that we're on the right path. And then usually the output of that is a very granular target recommendation, including, bill of materials as far as what we would recommend on our cloud or on-prem or hybrid technologies, whether it's going to be, multi-cloud. That's going to involve, granular conversion, pricing, and we've even, up to and including fixed price in some cases, working with Astadia to provide, this is how much it's going to cost to actually do it. And then what would the phases look like? What's the RACI? What's the implementation and efforts and need of time? The one thing I'll say, and we didn't get, too much time to talk about, is that, when you look at automated approaches, and this is a key, actually a very key for a customer we're just talking to, but, in our efforts, right, we don't have to go and talk to the line of business. We can use, the code as the analysis platform for this conversion methodology. And that's huge, because so many IT organizations are concerned about going to the line of business.
Oh, yes.
Yet another idea. This analysis can be done largely without them. And it's not to leave them out of the conversation, it's to make them part of the conversation once we know what we're all talking about.
At the right point in time.
Right, at the right point, because now you have a very definitive idea of the quality of that application, whether it should be converted in a certain type of approach. And you can deal with inhibitors, because change can be tough, right? And it'll be tough for the line of business. The other benefit of these automated approaches is that oftentimes they can take advantage of the same workflow, the same screens, the same reports. It's little to no impact. And you compare and contrast that with some customers that have attempted rewrites, which we know are risky. And it's not to say that all customers shouldn't do rewrites, but then you're going to have to go and really impact the line of business. So, at the end of that 6-week effort, we can really get granular with a customer and give them a really, good idea of the approach, the quality of approach, how they can measure the output, and then next steps as far as the actual conversion. And so obviously the third phase is the actual conversion. And as you well know, Walter, that varies. I mean, we've had engagements that have been relatively short, even including weeks. That's non-traditional, right? That's a very specific situation. All the way into 12, 15, 18 months, right? So it does vary, the actual migration project, but compare and contrast that with a rewrite, which we had a customer told us it was going to be 3 to 5 years, no end date in sight, right?
They're in the 8th year of their 3-year rewrite.
Well, in this particular situation, we came in and provided a basically a fixed price deal that was 1/6 of their cost and 1/3 of the time frame, and it was successful, and it blew them away, right? And so that's a big contrast. And I think one of the jobs that we have to do collectively is, show these organizations why this is different, right? We're not talking about, ground up rewrites. We're talking about use of automation, right? Not only on the target side, as I talked about with Oracle Autonomous Database, but, using your abilities to automate the conversion. And those are powerful combinations.
We feel so too, and I'm glad you mentioned that, the process that you go through, that it's something that is repeatable and it's proven. My very first migration, I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't even know what questions to ask. Oracle has gone through so many of these, and I know at Astadia we've learned with every one. So, jointly being able to help people understand what to look out for and what to expect, helping feed them that information, as you just described, is very, very helpful, I believe, to organizations.
I agree with you, Walter. Absolutely.
Lance, one last question, if I could. I'm going to ask you to put on your your Swami hat and look into your crystal ball, what do you feel is coming next for Oracle in the migration space? Where do you think this industry next goes?
Well, I mean, it's crazy, right? When you look at it from a product perspective, our R&D teams, right? Although we're part of R&D, we're not traditional R&D, right? We're doing all these migration engagements with our customers. But when you look at our organization, what the product managers are able to put together, time and time again, even with all the years, past us, and all the different enhancements, they're still coming up with various enhancements that are taking our products to the next level. And some of those feature functions are specifically related to making it easier for customers to migrate. And, for example, we talked about JSON and for example, they just did a release, we have a Mongo database API that makes it easier for customers to come over from Mongo. So, there's that constant product evolution. I think for customers, I think the thing is they're, in many situations, they're truly running out of time. We have been at many customers that literally, there was one, it was a public sector, and we arrived and, it was their going away party for the last developer particular system. And it's like, she told us, she said, I don't know what they're going to do. Today is my last day. There's my cake. And after this, I'm going home. And they still don't have a philosophy or a narrative of what they're going to do. And what I would suggest for customers is really take a look at your portfolio. I mean, doing nothing is not really an option. You need to have a plan, and the plan can be do nothing after you've made sure that you've covered your varying areas. So I think what we're going to expect in this space is that more and more customers are going to move, and the remaining customers are going to have to bear the brunt of those vendor lock-in costs. So I would highly encourage customers, take a look at your portfolio, prioritize it. Don't be the last one on the block that's going to leave the party. And make sure that you're engaging the right team. To your very early point, not everything's a hammer and nail situation. Make sure you're bringing in adaptive modernization approaches. So I think that's where we're going to see more of. I think in our space, automation is going to get better as far as transformation. As it's done in all technology areas. It'll be interesting to see the use of, AI as it relates to, or, chat GPTs type situations as it relates to legacy migrations, right? We've had parsers and transformation engines out there for a while. I think we're going to start to see some AI and ML and chat GPT type situations coming into the modernization space as well, and helping with those transformations. Should be very exciting.
I think it absolutely will be exciting. Lance, I know I took more of your time than I promised I would today, but it was a fascinating conversation for me, and I know it will be for the audience as well. As always, I'm just always so impressed with your knowledge of this space and your background and what you've seen and how you've been able to help your customers. So I wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. As always, it was a blast to get to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to our next project together.
As well, Walter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you'll continue to look at www.astadia.com at our schedule for upcoming podcasts. We're looking forward to bringing you many more industry experts. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.